the smartest AI in the world. We're going to show you exactly how and why. And it really is remarkable to see the advancement of artificial intelligence, how quickly it is evolving.
Imagine spending your entire career believing that whales communicate using nothing more than a handful of simple signals. Then, in just 20 minutes, everything you thought you knew collapses. That is exactly what happened after scientists conducted a 20-minute interaction with a humpback whale, an animal larger than a school bus, possessing what may be the most sophisticated communication system ever discovered outside humanity. But before we uncover what happened next, take a second to subscribe to the channel and help us reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. Inside an MIT laboratory, a researcher stares silently at her computer screen. After several long seconds, she whispers only 4 words. This isn't supposed to be possible. Moments earlier, an artificial intelligence system had finished analyzing more than 9,000 recordings of sperm whale communication. What it uncovered would challenge decades of scientific belief and force researchers to rethink everything they thought they knew about intelligence, language, and the hidden conversations taking place deep beneath the ocean's surface. The expectation was simple. The computer would identify repetitive animal sounds with limited meaning. Instead, it uncovered something no one was prepared to see. Not random clicks, not instinctive signals, but what appeared to be a complete phonetic alphabet containing vowel-like structures that were organized in a way strikingly similar to the building blocks of human speech. Not merely similar, structurally identical. And no scientist in that room could immediately explain how such a thing could exist. For decades, researchers believed sperm whales communicated through only 21 distinct click patterns known as codas. Each coda was assumed to carry a single fixed message, a warning, a direction, a contact call, simple signals for simple communication. Researchers viewed whale communication much like a traffic light, limited, predictable, and incapable of expressing anything approaching language. As one scientist explained, codas are groups of clicks. What we found is that, in a sense, these groups of clicks are very similar to human vowels. At the time, few people appreciated how extraordinary that statement truly was. Scientists had already collected thousands of recordings consisting of countless sequences of codas. Yet almost everyone assumed they represented nothing more than a limited signaling system. That assumption would become one of the greatest scientific miscalculations in modern biology. Ironically, the discovery began almost by accident. Marine biologist David Gruber was sitting in his office at Harvard University's Radcliffe Institute. He wasn't searching for a new language. He wasn't even studying whales. While researching jellyfish in the Caribbean, he happened to review a collection of sperm whale recordings he had gathered during earlier fieldwork. The sounds were familiar. Rapid bursts of mechanical clicks, almost like Morse code echoing beneath the ocean. He had heard them hundreds of times before. To him, they were simply background sounds from an animal science believed it already understood. Then someone walked past his office. MIT cryptographer Shafi Goldwasser paused outside his open door. She listened for only a few moments before asking a question that would completely change the direction of whale research. "That sounds like Morse code. Have you tried using machine learning to decode it?" David Gruber had never considered it. Neither had anyone else. Goldwasser wasn't a marine biologist. She specialized in breaking encrypted communication systems, the same kinds of mathematical codes governments use to protect state secrets. To her trained ear, those whale clicks didn't sound like meaningless animal noise. They sounded like encrypted information waiting to be decoded. That single conversation introduced another crucial figure into the project. Artificial intelligence researcher Michael Bronstein explained that the same deep learning technology behind modern language models, including systems like ChatGPT, could theoretically analyze whale communication, provided scientists could collect enough data. Suddenly, the impossible no longer seemed impossible. Researchers launched an ambitious new mission. For 5 years, teams of AI experts, roboticists, linguists, marine biologists, and computer scientists would work together toward one extraordinary goal: to make meaningful contact with another intelligent species. The project demanded something no previous whale study had ever attempted: more recordings than any scientist had ever gathered, more behavioral observations than marine biology had ever documented, and more computing power than any ocean research project had ever deployed. In 2020, that vision officially became Project CETI, the Cetacean Translation Initiative. Supported by the TED Audacious project and involving researchers from MIT, Harvard, UC Berkeley, and more than 15 additional institutions, Project CETI established a permanent research station off the Caribbean island of Dominica. The location wasn't chosen by chance. For decades, scientists had observed the same multi-generational sperm whale families returning to these waters year after year. Many individual whales were already known by name. Researchers had documented family relationships, identified matriarchs, mapped complex social hierarchies. Now, they intended to listen more closely than ever before. Hydrophone arrays were permanently installed along whale migration routes. Specialized biologger tags attached gently to whale skin using suction cups carried 3 synchronized microphones capable of identifying which whale was speaking within an entire group conversation. Alongside the audio came GPS positioning, depth measurements, accelerometers recording body movement with extraordinary precision. Every movement, every dive, every nearby sound, everything was recorded simultaneously. The goal wasn't simply to capture whale sounds, it was to understand the complete context surrounding every vocalization. Who was speaking? Who was listening? What each whale was doing? And what was happening throughout the surrounding ocean at that exact moment. For the first time in history, scientists weren't merely recording whale communication. They were recording the entire conversation. Eventually, more than 9,000 recordings were fed into the same class of deep learning systems that now power today's most advanced artificial intelligence models. One researcher later described the experience. "These weren't the harmonious whale songs I was used to hearing. They sounded more like digital data transfer." When the AI finished its analysis, the results rewrote the textbooks. What the AI found. When the artificial intelligence system finally completed its analysis, the researchers expected refinement. Perhaps it would discover a few additional click patterns, maybe a handful of subtle variations that previous studies had overlooked. Instead, it revealed something that forced scientists to question decades of accepted knowledge. For years, biology textbooks stated that sperm whales communicated through roughly 21 distinct click patterns known as codas. Each coda was believed to represent a simple fixed signal, a warning, a greeting, a contact call, or a navigational cue. It was thought to be a relatively limited communication system, impressive for an animal perhaps, but nowhere close to the complexity of human language. The AI found something entirely different. It didn't identify 21 codas. It identified 156. At first glance, that number sounded extraordinary. But as the researchers looked deeper, they realized the number itself wasn't the real discovery. The true revelation lay inside those codas. Every individual coda contained its own internal organization, tiny shifts in rhythm, subtle changes in tempo. delicate ornamental clicks layered together in repeating combinations that appeared far too consistent to be random. The patterns repeated across different whales, different families, and different recordings collected years apart. These weren't decorative flourishes. They were functional building blocks. The AI showed that the whales weren't simply repeating fixed messages over and over again. Instead, they appeared to be assembling communication dynamically from smaller acoustic components, combining them according to repeatable rules. That is precisely how human language works. Human speech isn't built from complete words. It is built from phonemes, small units of sound that carry little meaning on their own, but become meaningful when combined according to grammatical rules. The AI suggested sperm whales may be using exactly the same principle. Rather than choosing from a menu of 156 predetermined messages, they seem to be constructing new expressions by rearranging modular sound units. That distinction changes everything. Imagine the English language. English contains only 44 fundamental speech sounds. Yet those 44 sounds can be combined to produce hundreds of thousands of words and an effectively limitless number of sentences. Remove just one sound, and thousands of possible words disappear forever. Introduce a new rule governing how those sounds combine, and suddenly, an entirely new category of expression becomes possible. According to the AI, sperm whales appear to operate within a remarkably similar framework. A limited inventory of acoustic elements, a repeatable set of organizational rules, and an almost unlimited communication space built from those simple ingredients. The building blocks are clicks. The grammar appears to be real. And scientists have only begun mapping the extraordinary communication system those clicks create. It wasn't simply another scientific discovery. It represented a completely new way of thinking about intelligence itself. Dr. Daniela Roos of MIT summarized the findings during a press briefing. Our results show there is much more complexity here than previously believed. This is challenging the current state of the art of beliefs about the animal world. It sounded like a careful academic statement, but hidden inside those measured words was a scientific earthquake. Because nothing the AI uncovered represented a small correction to existing knowledge. This wasn't an update. It wasn't a refinement. It was the collapse of one of biology's oldest assumptions, that no other animal had independently evolved anything resembling the structural architecture of human language. Yet something had, and it had been doing so silently, in complete darkness, nearly a mile beneath the ocean's surface, for roughly 30 million years. The finding that stopped the room. As astonishing as those results were, they marked only the beginning. Another team member approached the data from an entirely different direction. Instead of examining how codas were organized into larger sequences, linguist Gaspar Bacchus at UC Berkeley focused on the smallest possible level of analysis. Every individual click, every tiny acoustic detail. Using some of the most sophisticated phonetic analysis equipment available, Bacchus examined the spectral structure hidden inside the whale clicks themselves. What emerged stunned even specialists in human linguistics. The whales weren't producing random broadband sounds. They appeared to generate acoustic structures remarkably similar to human vowel patterns. Researchers identified sounds resembling the ah heard in the word father. Others resembled the long e found in see. Even more surprising were acoustic transitions comparable to diphthongs, the blended vowel movements heard in words like boy. Bacchus later summarized the discovery simply. We concluded that this spectral pattern represents a whole new dimension in their communication system, and that it is meaningful. That statement carried enormous implications. Vowels are not accidental sounds. Producing them requires extraordinary biological precision. In humans, vowels emerge from highly specialized anatomy, a descended larynx, precisely coordinated muscles controlling airflow, and an intricate vocal tract capable of shaping resonance with remarkable consistency. For generations, scientists believed this evolutionary pathway was unique to humans. It reflected millions of years of natural selection acting specifically upon our ancestors. Yet here was a marine mammal living in complete darkness, beneath crushing ocean pressure, producing acoustic structures that appeared to follow remarkably similar principles. Backus later offered an analogy that transformed how many researchers viewed the discovery. Researchers once thought whale communication resembled Morse code. Our findings suggest it is much more like extremely slow vowels. That implies a complexity approaching human language. Read that idea carefully. Not because whales copied humans, not because humans taught whales, but because two entirely separate evolutionary histories may have independently reached remarkably similar communication architectures. That possibility is almost impossible to overstate. Humans evolved speech through one pathway. Sperm whales evolved sophisticated echolocation for survival in one of Earth's harshest environments. One lineage developed language while walking across continents beneath open skies. The other developed beneath thousands of feet of water, where sunlight never reaches. Completely different environments, completely different anatomy, completely different evolutionary histories, separated by hundreds of millions of years. Yet both appear to have arrived at comparable structural solutions. That isn't coincidence. Biologists have a name for it: convergent evolution. The phenomenon in which unrelated species independently develop similar solutions because those solutions are fundamentally effective. Birds and bats both evolved wings. Sharks and dolphins evolved streamlined bodies. Now scientists are asking whether advanced intelligence itself naturally converges toward phonetic communication built from modular sound units. If that proves true, the consequences extend far beyond whale biology. Perhaps vowels are not uniquely human after all. Perhaps phonemes are not uniquely human. Perhaps grammar itself is not uniquely human. Perhaps these are not inventions of our species. Perhaps they are natural properties of intelligence whenever it becomes sufficiently advanced. For centuries, language has been regarded as humanity's defining boundary, the characteristic that separated our minds from every other creature on Earth. The sperm whale alphabet does not merely blur that boundary, it threatens to erase it entirely. And if all of this feels almost impossible to believe, you're experiencing exactly what the scientists felt the moment the data appeared on their screens. Because what researchers discovered next would move beyond the structure of language itself and into something even more extraordinary. A conversation a mile down. Discovering that sperm whales possess the building blocks of language was astonishing enough. But the next discovery was even more remarkable. Because language is not simply a collection of sounds, language is knowing when to use those sounds, who to use them with, and why. And that is exactly what researchers began to observe beneath the surface of the Caribbean Sea. The whales weren't simply producing structured click sequences. They were using those sequences differently depending on the situation around them. That single distinction transformed the entire conversation. One researcher recalled the moment that first drew him into studying sperm whales. "I became interested in sperm whales when I heard their sounds. They sounded like they were coming from another universe, a siren song being broadcast from the darkest reaches of the sea. At first, those sounds seemed mysterious. Later, they became something far more extraordinary. As Project CETI collected thousands of hours of synchronized recordings, a remarkable pattern emerged. The same whale did not repeat identical codas every time it communicated. Instead, it adjusted its communication depending on circumstances, who was being addressed, what another whale had just communicated, what the surrounding environment looked like, whether the pod was resting, traveling, socializing, or preparing for a deep hunting dive. The communication changed. That is not how a fixed signaling system behaves. A warning signal always means danger. An alarm call always means the same thing. But this appeared different. It looked far more like what linguists describe as pragmatic communication. The ability to adjust language according to context. Humans do this constantly without realizing it. We speak differently to children than we do to coworkers. We change our tone depending on emotion. We choose different words depending on who is listening. The meaning is shaped not only by vocabulary, but also by relationships, timing, and shared understanding. Researchers now believe sperm whales may be doing something remarkably similar. That realization transformed thousands of isolated clicks into something that resembled genuine conversation. Few scientists have witnessed these interactions more closely than Shane Jarrow, who has spent more than 13 years studying sperm whale families around the island of Dominica. From the surface, he has watched social behaviors repeat again and again. Families traveling together, young calves playing beside one another, mothers caring for newborns, grandmothers remaining close as entire family groups prepare for deep dives. To Jarrow, it became increasingly difficult to dismiss these interactions as instinct alone. As he once described it, it is hard not to see cousins playing while chatting, to not see a mother hand her calf to a babysitter and exchange what looks, for all the world, like a few parting words before diving deep to hunt. That observation is more than poetic. It reflects years of careful field research. Some conversations continue for nearly an hour. Several whales participate simultaneously. Individuals respond directly to one another. They overlap, pause, resume, build upon previous click sequences. Researchers can measure conversational rhythm, patterns of timing, even something resembling turn-taking. Occasionally, two whales begin clicking at exactly the same moment. Instead of disrupting the interaction, the conversation simply continues. According to Jarrow, interruptions appear to be socially acceptable among close relatives, much the way family members often interrupt one another during human conversations. That seemingly ordinary observation carries extraordinary neurological implications. Producing the correct coda is only part of the process. A whale must also recognize who is listening, interpret what another whale has just communicated, remember previous interactions, judge the surrounding social situation, then select an appropriate response in real time. That requires far more than memory. It requires flexibility, planning, social awareness, and perhaps even what psychologists call a theory of mind, the ability to recognize that another individual possesses thoughts, intentions, and knowledge different from your own. For decades, many scientists regarded that ability as one of humanity's defining characteristics. Today, researchers studying sperm whales are becoming increasingly cautious about making that claim. Their recordings reveal something richer than repetitive calls. Some whales appear to dominate conversations. Others contribute only occasionally. Certain exchanges resemble reassurance between close relatives. Others resemble disagreement. Some vocal patterns occur only between particular individuals. Others involve entire family groups communicating together. The acoustic patterns mirror the social relationships observed above the surface. The conversations are not random. They are organized around family, around cooperation, around relationships that persist for decades. Supporting this extraordinary society is the largest brain found in any animal alive today. A mature sperm whale's brain weighs approximately 6 times more than a human brain. Within those immense brains exists an equally remarkable social world. Sperm whales live in stable matrilineal families spanning multiple generations. Knowledge passes from grandmother to mother, from mother to calf. Behavioral traditions survive for decades, sometimes centuries. Families cooperate while hunting thousands of feet beneath the surface in complete darkness, coordinating movements across vast distances where vision is almost useless. Such behavior would be nearly impossible without sophisticated communication. As one researcher explained, sperm whales communicate before they hunt and when they socialize. So, we think there might be far more meaning within their communication system than we previously imagined. That simple statement captures a profound realization. These are not simple animals. They never were. Perhaps science simply lacked the tools to hear what they had been saying all along. Structure is not meaning. Yet, as extraordinary as these discoveries are, researchers are careful to distinguish between two very different achievements. Understanding the structure of a language is not the same as understanding its meaning. Project CETI has accomplished something remarkable. Artificial intelligence has successfully identified the grammar-like organization hidden inside sperm whale communication. It has mapped repeating acoustic patterns, identified phonetic building blocks, recognized combinatorial rules, cataloged vowel-like structures, distinguished individual whales by unique vocal signatures, documented years of conversations between known family members. Every one of those findings has been carefully analyzed, verified, and subjected to peer review. Yet despite all of that progress, scientists still cannot translate a single sentence. Not one. The architecture is becoming visible. The dictionary remains almost entirely blank. Researchers still cannot answer the questions everyone wants to ask. What does one specific coda actually mean? How does changing the rhythm alter the message? Does a rising tempo express urgency? Does a slower sequence communicate reassurance? Why does a mother repeat certain click patterns to her calf while using completely different ones when addressing the entire family? For now, nobody knows, and that uncertainty defines the next chapter of the project. Language cannot be decoded through sound alone. Meaning requires context. Every vocalization must be connected to observable behavior. Who was speaking? Who was nearby? What happened immediately afterward? Was the family resting, hunting, avoiding danger, greeting another group? Only by matching sounds with real-world events can scientists begin assigning meaning to the acoustic patterns. That is why Project CETI's technology has become so sophisticated. Modern biologger tags record far more than sound. 3 synchronized microphones capture conversations from multiple directions simultaneously. GPS systems